What if I told you that the story of a little girl and three bears holds the secret to never losing motivation again? Sounds crazy, right? But here's the thing. Elite athletes, successful entrepreneurs, and top performers all use this same principle without even realizing it. Let me tell you about Sarah, a pianist who was ready to quit after 15 years of playing, until she discovered this game-changing approach that completely transformed her relationship with practice. In Chapter 19 of Atomic Habits, James Clear reveals the scientific sweet spot for motivation, a principle so powerful that it explains why some people stay consistently driven while others burn out or lose interest. You'll discover the exact formula top performers use to stay motivated for years, not just days or weeks. This chapter will revolutionize how you approach any challenge in your life, whether it's in your career, fitness journey, or personal projects. We'll explore the psychology behind sustainable motivation and why most people get it completely wrong when trying to stay motivated. Stay until the end, because I'll share a simple 2-minute exercise that helps you find your perfect challenge level in any activity. Something that could be the difference between giving up and achieving mastery. Plus, you'll learn the surprising truth about why being in your comfort zone isn't always a bad thing. Welcome to Book Summary, where you can unlock the power of books in minutes, not months. Get the key insights, chapter by chapter, and start learning smarter, not harder. Let's begin. In Chapter 19 of Atomic Habits, James Clear unveils a powerful principle that explains why motivation seems to come and go like waves, the Goldilocks Rule. Just as Goldilocks searched for the perfect porridge temperature, Clear explains that humans experience peak motivation when tasks are at the right level of difficulty. Not too hard, not too easy, but just right. Clear illustrates this concept through the story of Stephen Curry, the NBA superstar known for his exceptional shooting skills. Curry doesn't just practice randomly. He engages in exercises that are about 4% beyond his current abilities. This sweet spot keeps him challenged enough to stay engaged, but not so overwhelmed that he gets frustrated. It's this precise balance that has helped him maintain his motivation through thousands of practice hours. The chapter delves into the science of what researchers call the flow state, that magical zone where time seems to disappear and you're completely absorbed in what you're doing. Clear explains that this state occurs when you're operating at the edge of your current abilities. He shares the example of rock climbers who consistently seek routes that push their limits without being impossible. When the challenge is too easy, they get bored. When it's too difficult, they become anxious. The perfect route creates that addictive state of flow that keeps them coming back for more. One of the most practical insights from this chapter is Clear's Goldilocks Rule calculator, a mental framework for gauging if you're in the optimal zone. He suggests that the sweet spot for motivation lies in tasks that are roughly 3 to 7% beyond your current abilities. Any less, and you risk boredom. Any more, and you might face discouragement. He uses the example of a weightlifter who consistently adds small increments to their lifts rather than making dramatic jumps. This approach maintains both motivation and progress. Clear challenges the common belief that motivation leads to action. Instead, he argues that action often precedes motivation. He shares the story of Jerry Seinfeld, who maintained his comedy writing skills by following his "don't break the chain" calendar method. Even on days when Seinfeld didn't feel motivated, the simple act of writing would often spark motivation and creativity. The key takeaway here is that waiting for motivation to strike is a recipe for inconsistency. The chapter also addresses the inevitable phases of boredom that come with any long-term pursuit. Clear explains that masters are distinguished from amateurs not by their ability to avoid boredom, but by their ability to stick with it despite the boredom. He uses the example of Olympic athletes who maintain grueling training schedules not because every session is exciting, but because they've learned to embrace the mundane aspects of their craft. One particularly powerful section discusses the Goldilocks zone in learning and skill development. Clear explains how video games masterfully use this principle by gradually increasing difficulty as players improve. Each level is challenging enough to maintain interest, but achievable enough to prevent frustration. He suggests applying this same principle to any skill we're trying to develop, whether it's learning a language, mastering a musical instrument, or building a business. Clear provides practical strategies for maintaining motivation through what he calls variable rewards. He uses the example of fishing to illustrate this concept. The uncertainty of when you'll catch something keeps you engaged. This same principle can be applied to habit formation by introducing elements of novelty and uncertainty while maintaining the core routine. The chapter concludes with an important reminder about the relationship between challenge and satisfaction. Clear argues that human beings are at their happiest not when things are easier, but when they're making progress in meaningful challenges. He shares examples of successful entrepreneurs who could have retired but continue working because they found the right level of challenge that keeps them engaged and fulfilled. Key insights from this chapter include understanding that sustainable motivation comes from taking on challenges slightly beyond our current abilities, recognizing that boredom is a natural part of mastery, and accepting that action often needs to precede motivation rather than the other way around. Clear emphasizes that the Goldilocks Rule isn't just about finding the right challenge level once. It's about continuously adjusting as you improve. Like a video game that becomes progressively harder, we need to regularly reassess and adjust the difficulty of our challenges to maintain motivation and growth. This chapter fundamentally changes how we think about motivation. Instead of viewing it as something that randomly comes and goes, we can see it as something we can actively cultivate by carefully managing the level of challenge in our lives. By understanding and applying the Goldilocks Rule, we can maintain motivation not just for days or weeks, but for the long haul required to achieve meaningful goals. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear about your just right challenge level. What activity puts you in that perfect flow state? Share your experience in the comments below, and let's learn from each other's journeys. Now, here's something that might surprise you. In our next video on Chapter 20, James Clear reveals a fascinating paradox: how your good habits might actually be holding you back. Sounds impossible, right? Well, wait until you hear about the hidden downside of mastery and why some of the most successful people deliberately make things harder for themselves. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to join our community of habit builders. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you won't miss the surprising revelations in Chapter 20. Thank you for being here today and investing in your personal growth. Remember, the perfect challenge is waiting for you, just like Goldilocks porridge. And hey, sometimes the best motivation comes from just showing up. See you in the next video where we'll explore the unexpected dark side of good habits.